I'm going to start over again right now. Okay, pro wrestling fans, it's your buddy Mike Messier. It's your buddy Mike Messier, pro wrestling fans. So the big story, as we know this week, is the WWE, the McMahons, Vince McMahon, selling the company to either Saudi Arabia or possibly even Tony Khan in AEW or somebody else. We had a kind of a false flag the other night that a sale had already gone through to the Saudi Arabians. And people kind of pulled back on that. 12 or 14 hours later, tweets were untweeted and reports were unreported or covered up or whatever. But I think I'm going to give Brian Alvarez credit. He pointed something out that with previous sales of big, combat sports companies like UFC, WCW to Ted Turner, and then WCW again to Vince McMahon, reports typically come out and then they're kind of hush and buried for a while. And then the official report comes out. So you have an initial, announcement, underground, bootleg announcement from somebody saying that there's been a sale. Then people cover it up and pretend it didn't happen. And then months later, it did happen. And Alvarez kind of went through the chronology of this. And I want to back up Alvarez because my uncle Mike, who I was named after and was a big wrestling fan in our family before me, he told me that at the Great American Bash in 1988, good point. At the Great American Bash, and No Some Way Tana has a good point here, everyone wanted to break the news and get those clicks, but they were a little bit ahead. But here's what I'm going to say to that, buddy. Let me just finish this little story first. My Uncle Mike went to the Great American Bash pay-per-view, the Barry Windham versus Dusty Rhodes, the infamous Ric Flair, Lex Luger blood stoppage match in Baltimore, the Tower of Doom match, and so forth. And he told me that by intermission at that show, or just, 2 or 3 matches into the pay-per-view, the fans in Baltimore, a rumor was spreading throughout the Baltimore arena that Jim Crockett Promotions, the NWA, had been sold to Ted Turner. And this was July 10th, 1988. And he said that everybody was talking about it. All the fans somehow heard it somehow. And then that official sale, as you might know, didn't go through until December of 1988, just in time for Starrcade 88. So the question obviously is, well, what happened between, how did people know, first off, in July, and then how come it wasn't fully announced until December? Well, it could have been something just as simple as some people backstage were talking, some promoters, Gary Juster, who knows, was there, talked to a few of the wrestlers. Maybe some of the wrestlers talked to some of their female fans, and then those female fans reported the news to some of their friends in the audience, and there you go. And then it just spreads all over. And why wasn't it official until December of 88? And remember, this was a time before internet and so forth. Why wasn't it official until December of 88? Probably just the paperwork. And Alvarez himself, and I'm giving him credit, because, you're talking about lawyers, paperwork. There is a Warren Zevon song, if you ever heard of him, the guy that sang Werewolves of London. He had another really good song, Send Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I don't even think that was the name of the song, but that was the name of the album. Lawyers, Guns, and Money. Look into that one. But that's what you need. You're going to need a lot of time for paperwork, especially if the Saudi Arabian, deal is what's happening. You're talking about different currencies. I'm assuming they don't use the American dollar. So with the money, all the big size money like that, I'm sure they're not going to pay in Bitcoin or in mini golf tokens. They're talking big money, and how much money are you going to have, and how is it going to be processed, basically, with the banks and everything. So it wouldn't make sense, even if Vince McMahon wanted to sell the WWE to Saudi Arabia as an FU to the government, to the United States government that tried to put him in jail back in 94 with the steroid trial. Even if Vince wanted to say an FU to his own family, to his daughter, to his son, to his son-in-law, maybe to his wife, and even probably a big fu to the fan base, to the a loyal American or North American fan base of WWE, real American and all that stuff. If Vince wanted to wipe his ass with that legacy, what better way than to sell to the Saudi Arabian public interest fund? I'm going to tell you who I would act. I mean, I don't think I would feel sorry for them, but the people that would get the short end of the stick if WWE were to sell to Saudi Arabia, or if that's going to happen, I think the Saudi Arabians are getting the short end of the stick. And I'll explain to you why. I didn't know about this thing until last night. Live Golf. I'm not a golf fan, but apparently this Live Golf thing is a Saudi Arabian enterprise. They have the top golfers playing for them. They're paying these golfers millions and millions of dollars more than they get anywhere else. But no streaming or no TV network wants to pick up this Live Golf, apparently. I heard about this on the Eric Bischoff podcast, not 83 Weeks, but Strictly Business with Eric Bischoff and John Alba, who I think is very good, actually, at his job. So basically, they're talking about all this stuff, and they're saying that the Saudi Arabians are paying a whole lot of money for this Live Golf, but they can't get any money back on it because no network wants to work with them. And why wouldn't they want to work with them, you might ask? Well, the human rights violations. I mean, this is a country that executed more of its citizens in one day than any other country on record, apparently. I don't know if you went back to Nazi Germany, there might be a different day, but as far as in recent memory, in the last 20 or 30 years, the Saudi Arabian elites, the inner circle, if you would, they control a lot, and the average citizen does not. So, we talk about the women's rights, gay, lesbian rights over there are not really happening. And yes, what Bischoff kind of said to Alba last night as well, if you want to talk about that, talk about the NBA working with China, or, this phone that I'm using right now was probably, most of it was made in China. The parts were made in China. Conflict minerals, I think they were once called. Ashley Judd wrote an article about that years ago, when she wrote about the fact that we're all using these, wonderful phones, but the conflict materials or the conflict minerals are basically made by people that are more or less human slaves in this day and age. So we're all hypocrites. I mean, if you put on a belt, you don't know what kid had to sit in a fucking warehouse for 12 hours making that belt, or 16 hours. I mean, there are countries in the world where the, sweat house workers are so exhausted and so miserable with their lives that they proceed to jump out of the building at work and kill themselves. So much so that some of these countries have buildings where they put up nets outside the windows to prevent employee suicide. So anytime you're feeling down and out about the United States, or, Brittany Griner wants to take a knee during the national anthem or so forth, yes, our country is severely flawed. We have several issues here in the United States, many big issues, but it could be worse. And I mean, I don't know. How else can you say it? But I guess I'll get off the topic there. My feeling is, why would the Saudi Arabians be doing themselves a disservice? Because, no soy Montana, the reason is, buddy, they would be investing in something, maybe naively, believe it or not. I mean, I can't think that these folks would be so naive, but if they think that the world is, it's kind of like that World Cup, last month when the Argentinian player, the goalie, got the trophy. And I just watched this clip last night. He kind of put the gold glove trophy to his groin and made an obscene gesture of thrusting. And there's this photograph of him doing that with this, Middle Eastern gentleman kind of recoiling. And I think that's a summary of this. I think a lot of countries, Argentina, apparently, the United States, I'm sure places like Ireland and England and France, there's a certain cynicism, a certain sarcasm, that and intelligence as well, that goes along with us Um, and I don't think that translates well to the Middle Eastern cultures, which I would say are more discipline-based, more authority-based, more, perhaps religious-based. You know what I mean? So I'm saying I think it's a bad mix. And I think the ones that suffer, including the wrestling fans, would be the Saudi Arabians themselves, meaning the people that pay for it. I don't think it would be a good fit. It's kind of like if I go out and buy a size medium t-shirt. If I see a size medium t-shirt that I think is awesome, I say, oh my God, I'm going to buy this t-shirt and then I'm going to lose 150 pounds so I can fit into it. I'm just wasting my money. You see what I'm saying? And that's just the truth. What else can I say here, buddy? I just don't think people would really support the WWE as run by the Saudi Arabians as much as they perhaps naively would think that they would be supported, meaning the Saudi Arabians. And unless they greatly adjusted it, here's the other analogy I want to make, Nose Montana, and I see your comment. Oh yeah, that pick went around the world and it was not well received. No, it wasn't. And even I mean, look, I was not happy that the world, I'm not a big soccer fan or football fan, if you would, with a U. But the fact that these games are played in the stadium city, these 10 giant stadiums where they more or less conned indentured servants, people had to pay $3,000 or $4,000. I think it was $4,000 for the honor of working at those stadiums, and then they find themselves just paying off that $4,000 for the better part of 10 years. So, and we all bitched about it. We all knew about it. The Stephen Colbert or the fucking guy on HBO and This Week, Last Week, or whatever the fuck his show is, and Jon Stewart, they all got upset about it, but they all fucking watched the World Cup anyway, all right? I watched about 5 minutes of a semifinal game. I was so out of it, I thought France had won the fucking thing, but they lost. So my point is, I just think that that's a good analogy. That guy thrusting with that trophy, that's kind of how the WWE wrestlers, perhaps, or the fans at least, are going to feel in their hearts if the Saudi Arabians buy this thing. I just don't think it's a good idea for them. Here's a good statement, buddy. And I think we're good now with the video. I'm going to go back and edit this video, trim off the first 5 minutes of the bad audio. The thing about the selling has to be kind of the same problem they have with doing pay-per-views overseas, where they just can't move everything to another country. That's what intrigues me. Well, here's another and great point. What about NXT? What about the Performance Center in here, in Florida? 90 minutes, or actually about 2.5 hours from where I am. Orlando, Florida has this state-of-the-art complex, the Performance Center. Is that just chump change, for everybody? I guess it is. I mean, I guess something is always chump change to somebody, right? So I guess to the Saudi Arabians, Titan Tower in Stamford, Connecticut is chump change. The Performance Center in Orlando is chump change. To me, in my financial status, it seems like a lot of expensive things here, buildings and resources and materials and human people. But I guess if these guys would just control all this oil or whatever the fuck they control, it's just nothing to them. And I think that's another thing, Noso Montana. I think with at least the type of wrestling fan that I'm used to, the type of wrestling fan that I grew up with and as, working class people who've always enjoyed pro wrestling, but want to pay $20, $30 for a ticket to see the wrestling live, or they'll pay $50 for an AEW pay-per-view, or $10 a month for the network, the WWE network, or Peacock. But I don't think they're going to feel good about you spending that money if they feel that their money is going to a country that kills more citizens in one day than most countries do in a year. You know what I mean? And you can look that up. I think the number was 77 or some such thing. But I don't think that the Saudi Arabian elite are going to get a return on their investment. And I don't know to what extent they have the knowledge of the product, meaning the WCW tape footage that I'm assuming would be a part of this deal, Smoky Mountain, AWA, World Class Championship Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic Territory. Would the Saudi Arabian brain trust really know what to do with all that stuff? I mean, in theory, They should be hiring people like me, people like yourself, Noso Montana, Evan Ginsberg, Nikita Breznikov, wrestling experts who could break down this material for them. They should hire us with their big money. Now, I don't want to work for them. I'm just saying, a couple of years ago when they did that first Crown Jewel, Greatest Royal Rumble thing, whatever it was, they were trying to get the Ultimate Warrior and Yokozuna into this thing, guys that had been deceased for years. And they were shoehorning like sumo guys that kind of looked like Yokozuna into this thing. That was the one that I believe Strowman won. So it's just, I think, like I said, it's like me buying a medium-sized shirt. It's just a medium-sized belly shirt. It's not going to be good for me, and it's not going to be good for anybody else. So I'm being a little self-depreciating here, buddy. All right, so let's talk about another potential buyer. Tony Khan, AEW, Shad Khan. Look, the city of Jacksonville is afire because there is a big playoff game. I think the first playoff game that Jacksonville's hosted. I'm not sure if they even hosted a playoff. They did, actually. 5 years ago, I believe they lost to the Patriots here in Jacksonville. I think that's what happened. But beyond that, it was like another 10 years before they had been in the playoffs. So Jacksonville's very excited, and that's the Khan family. And Khan also has a football team, a soccer team. And they also have Daly's Place, which is a live event venue. And all these things that they have at their fingertips. And, of course, AEW and Ring of Honor. They can do the Nike thing. There's 2 Nikes, one in Europe and one in Guatemala. Guatemala is the owner of the mark. I'm assuming you mean the trademark. And the other one produces everything and pays for the licensing, including the money. Good point. I'll give, I think it was Alba last night, John Alba, on that Strictly Business podcast, used the term sports washing, which I thought, I never heard that term before, but basically companies or countries that do stuff that's undesirable, let's say, they invest into sports because people are so hypnotized by sports. You throw a ball onto a field and everybody just has to look at the ball, right? So these countries and these companies that are kind of not that great with the perception of their morality, they sports wash. They wash their money in sports. And he was saying that that's what the World Cup was like this most recent time. This is what WWE and Saudi Arabia now is like this. Maybe in the past, I'm not sure exactly which ones I'm referencing, but big boxing matches that Don King promoted in other countries and so forth. Maybe that was part of it. Who knows? And here's the thing with why I don't think it's a good move for Tony Khan and Shad Khan. First off, I don't know if they get away with it. When I say get away with it, it just means would they be violating some type of antitrust law? I'm not an expert on that, but I do know that in the past, there was things like cable television stations were often, powerful cable TV companies, I should say, were kind of in violation of these antitrust things. The Ma Bell, way back when in the 70s and the 80s, you had one juggernaut of a phone company for phone service, and they got broken up by the federal government. That's why you got all these things like MCI and Sprint and AT&T kind of came out of that. Because in their country, in theory at least, we're not supposed to have monopolies. Although you can look at the entertainment world, and I think there's basically like 6 major companies that own all the other stuff underneath them. So I guess one way these companies skirt around it is they have something like Disney, but then Disney has ESPN. And many people probably don't even realize that. Sports washing is what my country did for a long time. The president and the TV company that owned the soccer league were really close. Well, there you go. And this is another good point, buddy. All of this stuff is fun to speculate and think about and talk about. But the reality, and this is kind of just me singing the same old Mike Messier song, these decisions and these issues are so out of our touch. Our opinions mean very little to the Vince McMahons, the Stephanie McMahons, the Triple H's. They might say that it does, but our opinions don't really matter to them. What I think, my logic, your logic, we would like to think that somehow we speak about this stuff and they give a shit. And the reality is they don't. What's up, D-Back? I hope all is good with you. Most things are good with me personally, but people close to me have not been doing so well health-wise, which is why I've been a little bit not doing as many videos. So just, it's been a tough time in that regard. I'm fine, but like I said, somebody close to me is not doing so well, which is tough, but we're getting through it. Thanks for asking. So we go to this thing. Well, I think Tony Khan would love to buy it, to be honest with you. And I think that in a different set of circumstances, if it wasn't a monopoly, if it wasn't a violation of antitrust, Tony Khan might be the perfect buyer, because they have the money. And I think that's one thing I saw Dutch Mantel say about the Saudi Arabians. If they have the money and they're willing to buy it, that makes them a good buyer. So same thing with Tony Khan. And I think as a wrestling fan, he would have the respect for the WWE material. He wouldn't try to undermine the WWE legacy like WWE has kind of done, or it has done with WCW and ECW to an extent. I think Tony Khan would honor all that stuff because he grew, no offense to him, but he's a mark just like the rest of us. So I think Tony Khan would be a very gracious owner to WWE. But I don't think that's going to happen because it would be an antitrust violation. At least that's the way I see things. I could be wrong. Could he fund? They were talking about one of these things, one of these wrestling videos I just watched on YouTube. Could the Khans team up with another entity, another family, or another, who knows? Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. I hope things get better for your friend. Prayers. I do appreciate that. Interesting, that whole thing last week. With the football player Damar Hamlin, I really did not do any videos about that, but I was watching videos. I was keeping up with the news. I have the NFL Network app temporarily, which is not that great, to be honest with you. Hey, guess what? They finally got his throat clear. Amen. God is good. That's you don't know what that is, but that's actually a text I just got regarding my friend who's not doing so well. So he's in the hospital and his throat is clear. Thanks, D-Back. That might be from you, buddy. Thanks, pal. But so that's very exciting. But talking about this whole wrestling thing, Damar Hamlin, I've been watching that. I've been watching that, and the power of prayer and the guy on ESPN praying, and it's interesting how our society, we might have really hit rock bottom. When I say that, it's not. It sounds sarcastic, but when I say the conflicts, the COVIDs, the fucking racism, this Golden Globe speech, Chris Rock getting slapped by what's his dick, all these things that have been happening. It's almost like people are so beaten down they have to pray, because our country has not really encouraged that for 30 or 40 or 50 years. So you get to a point where everything's been sucking so bad that people are actually praying and talking about it. Yeah, I think that's pretty good in some regard. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you climb yourself out of it. I don't see the Khans buying WWE myself. I think they would want to. And I think possibly if they hadn't just bought Ring of Honor, I know Ring of Honor is a zit on the ass of WWE. Don't get me wrong. But I think with the logistics and the legalities, if someone were to raise their hand to the federal government and want to point out, hey, this AEW group, the Khans, just bought another wrestling company. Why should they be allowed to buy WWE? I think that's a valid point. Yes, it's apples and oranges. It's like a slice of apple compared to a fucking apple field, comparing ROH to WWE. But still, they're both wrestling groups at the end of the day. And I think that would hurt the Khans. So maybe in retrospect, who knows? As far as other wrestling people, MLW, Impact, I don't think they have the capital, the money to buy WWE. New Japan Pro Wrestling, that might, but I don't even know if they would have that much money. They have a lot of money, I'm sure, but do they? I don't see that. Nothing in Mexico, same thing. I don't think they would have. And AAA or whatever you call it, they wouldn't have the money to buy WWE. What about Trump? I mean, if you really want to talk about it, Trump's a big wrestling fan. Trump's a big McMahon guy. Obviously, he appeared at WrestleMania 23, in Bobby Lashley's corner against Umaga with Vince. I mean, I'm surprised that people aren't throwing Trump's name around, but Trump's got a lot of problems right now, legal issues and so forth. I would much rather Tony buy WWE than anyone else, really. Yeah, and I'm kind of with you on that, buddy. I just don't know if the feds would allow it, but maybe they would. I mean, maybe they just wouldn't give a shit because it's wrestling. I think that's another topic, guys, is that we get so excited about this wrestling stuff, but let's remember, and yeah, things like Sportskeeda and Sports Illustrated and different Hollywood Reporter, I guess they all kind of report WWE sometimes, and I know the AMC docs and so forth, but still, when the Vince McMahon stuff was going down, last summer and into now, there wasn't a whole lot of coverage. There really wasn't, compared to other stories, compared to things like, Weinstein controversy or whatever else. There was not a lot of coverage on Vince McMahon's issues. And I just don't think that the mainstream really cares. They just kind of put us in the wrestling world. I'm really interested in the Stephanie and Vince situation, this whole debacle. Yeah, I was just seeing some stuff about that. Stephanie resigns one day. The next day is when we have all this Saudi Arabian controversy, and people are saying, well, is that a connection? Did Stephanie resign because the Saudi Arabians would not approve of a woman being in such a high position? I think that's a fair enough point. I mean, Bischoff pissed all over that point on his show, but I'm not pissing on it. I think anything's fair game at this point. There's two ways to look at stuff, guys. It's everything matters or nothing matters. And I'm always on the camp of everything matters. I mean, some people just want to put their fucking blindfolds on and they don't want to consider the big picture, but I always consider the entire picture. And the picture you don't even see. What instruments are making the picture? Are you using a pen or using a charcoal pencil? So the point is, when Bischoff just so flagrantly pisses on the idea that Stephanie resigning couldn't have anything possibly due to the possible buying of the Saudi Arabians, I just find that to be disingenuous, and maybe Bischoff's trying to get a job. Who knows? What else? Please, more questions, comments. Let's keep this conversation going for a few more minutes. I really, I think we kind of maybe we're all in the same opinion today. It was, yes, Tony Khan would probably be the best buyer. I just don't see it happening. Thanks, pal. Everything matters. Well said, my friend. Yeah, I'm trying. I did see a good movie last night, which I didn't do my review on yet. Broker. It's actually a Korean movie with subtitles. I've been watching a lot of international films. They used to call them foreign films, but I'll call them international films, because if you were in Korea where this movie was made, it wouldn't be foreign to you. Wakanda Forever would be foreign to you. You see what I'm saying? So this movie Broker is actually about baby brokering, for crying out loud. But it's actually a pretty damn good movie. I enjoyed it. So I've been doing that a lot lately, seeing international films. Football, American football anyway, this weekend's going to be huge. Jacksonville's got a big game tomorrow. Very exciting. The team I grew up with, sort of, the Washington Commanders, AKA, or formerly known as the Washington Redskins, they choked a dick once again towards the end of the season. I mean, it's just like these guys cannot get in the playoffs. Same thing with the New England Patriots. Post Tom Brady, Belichick, I hate to say that he's been exposed, but he's kind of been exposed. I could be wrong, but I don't think Belichick and the Patriots have made the playoffs once since Brady left. If they did make it once, I think they were eliminated in the first game, but I don't think they've even made it to the playoffs since Tom Brady took his talents to Tampa Bay and won Tampa Bay Buccaneers a Super Bowl. So Tampa Bay's in the playoffs. That's very interesting to me. I am a Tom Brady fan, to be honest with you. I think it'll be interesting to see. Can he just win one game? I think that would be nice if Brady just won a game in the playoffs at home against Dallas. You know what I mean? I don't think his team is really built, or even Tom is really has it in him to win a Super Bowl this year, but you can't count that guy out. He'll be walking around with a cane winning Super Bowls at age 77. So what else, gentlemen? I guess there'll be a certain contingency tonight. I don't know if I'll be one of them that's going to sit around and watch SmackDown just to see what happens. I mean, I think that's one thing about us wrestling fans. We get very rolled into this, seeing what happens. Fear of being left out. I think that's even an acronym, FO. Fear of being left out. FOBLO or something. Fear of being left out. So people might tune into SmackDown tonight just to see what happens. I still think Mercedes could show up at a pay-per-view. I think Tony Khan not knowing she wants an appearance deal was the reason she didn't show up Wednesday. Say Revolution or Forbidden Door 2. Here's my thoughts on that, Juan, and it's good to see you again here, Juan, because you've commented on live broadcast before, I think even going back to a couple of summers ago when I was at the St. Augustine thing. But I do think that Mercedes, FKA, Sasha Banks, I think what would be best for her, what I would do if I were her, is really not have a full-time contract. She's doing a lot of films. She actually just, I'll just say this. I know somebody that recently directed her in a film, and they said that the director told me that she was very good and she was easy to work with. And that's in the film world. No bumps, or less bumps at least, more money. And I'll be honest with you, that's why you see guys like Dave Bautista. He's got a big movie coming out with M. Night Shyamalan. And you've got, and I will answer the questions about Megan in a second, the movie. You've got Dave Bautista, John Cena, The Rock, of course. And a generation ago, if Piper and Hogan could have taken no bumps and just done movies full time, I think they would have. And I think that, yes, there's that adrenaline rush of being in the ring and performing and all that good shit, but less bumps, more money. So I think the smart thing, but I'm not her, it's her life, obviously. Sasha Banks, the smart thing for her to do would be wrestle 6 to 8 matches a year, put herself into business as a special attraction, and not be a full-time wrestler. And it's, I was going to make this point earlier about the Saudi Arabian stuff, Saudi Arabia possibly buying WWE. I like Chinese food, but I'll eat Chinese food maybe at the most 3 times a week. But if I ate Chinese food every day of the week or every night of the week, I get really sick of Chinese food. You see what I'm saying? And I think with the Saudi Arabians having 2 shows a year of WWE coming over for this American spectacle in the middle of Saudi Arabia, that's exciting. But if you were to make that a daily occurrence, I mean, I don't know if even the Saudi Arabians can tolerate watching SmackDown and Raw every week. You see what I'm saying? So I think it's like everything's better when you have less of it. And everything is valued more when you have less of it. Let me get to some of these other comments. You're right. No Brady, no championships. Yeah. I mean, Tom Brady as a individual has more Super Bowl rings than any other team in the history of the league, including the Patriots. And I believe they're tied for 6 with the Steelers, but Tom has more than all of them. I did see Megan, the film. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. I won't spoil it for you, but I do think it's worth seeing. I saw it with a very lively audience. The audience was really into it, and I did do a review of it. So if you guys, you might want to, with your Mike Messier, subscribe to, click your bell, like unsubscribe, and then click like unnotify, and then re-notify, or unsubscribe, then resubscribe, because that way it kind of reboots and refreshes the notifications. So I'm not telling you to unsubscribe. I'm just saying hit the subscribe button a couple of times in a row just to reboot it, and the little alarm clock thing. So I did see Megan, and I did do a Mike's Instant Movie review about it. I've been seeing a lot of movies lately. I call them international movies. I saw a couple of movies, Bollywood movies, a Korean film, a German film the other night. And I did see Megan, and I did like it. And I thought the doll was really cool. Here's a topic I haven't really explored. I really enjoy Stardom. This is a women's pro wrestling group, and I'm really looking forward to her wrestling some of Stardom's girls. Well, I would be happy to be more informed about Stardom. I'm quite aware of its existence. And in fact, in my legendary pro wrestling rant, the rant with myself and Vince Russo, I think I even mentioned Stardom because I knew that it was a great alternative for women's wrestlers. I was going off about how the WWE women couldn't wrestle in Saudi Arabia. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Definitely watch your movie review. I usually watch all your movie reviews. I appreciate it. And I'll have to do one for that movie I saw last night, um, Broker. So yeah, Megan was good. I would have to. I'll look into see if Stardom has stuff on YouTube. I'm sure they do, either officially or unofficially. I've got so much wrestling stuff. I even ordered that Ricky Steamboat retirement match. I guess it turned out to be a 6-man tag. I ordered that, and they it was a $24.95 3-show package. I'm still like at the top of the second show with that, and but anyway, that's from Big Time Wrestling and Fight, which I do enjoy. I mean, I've kind of come over. There's a lot of things, guys, that I was very old school. I was very slow to get a smartphone. I was very slow to get a cell phone, and I was very slow to get into stuff like even ordering stuff online from Amazon and eBay. But now I'm really into it. I really order a whole lot of stuff on Amazon and eBay. I do those videos, what's in the bag, and so forth for my ordering online. I just find it like the effort of ordering something and just being patient and waiting a couple of days to get it is, to me, a better deal than going to 3 or 4 different stores trying to find something. So I'd rather just wait a day or two, even if I really want something now. I typically can wait a couple of days to get it through Amazon or eBay. eBay takes longer, but it's cheaper. And I do sell stuff on eBay too. You can look into the Foreign Object eBay store. I've got wrestling action figures and so forth. Big guy t-shirts, the Foreign Object on eBay. Stardom I'll look into, buddy. Thanks. I've got so much backlog of wrestling to watch. The Steamboat final match. I've been watching a lot of stuff on Netflix and so forth. The morning show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. I thought that was a great show. I think they had 2 seasons of that. I just watched the Chippendales. I think it was called either Chippendales or the Chippendales Murders. A friend of mine insisted, my friend Audrey insisted that I watch that whole thing. So I did. And I enjoyed it. And I'm watching this thing on, I think it's on Peacock, I believe, Paul T. Goldman, which is pretty interesting. It's about a guy who's in Florida and he finds out that his wife is a prostitute. So that's the Paul T. Goldman series. I completely agree and would rather not go to a store, honestly. And that's our changing world, D-back. I mean, it used to be, it was exciting to go to a store. It's like, oh, you not that you would get dressed up, but like just to walk around a store or a shopping mall and see all this fucking shit and come home with some stuff that you needed, stuff that you didn't need, maybe return an item. Like all those things were kind of, and now it's just like, fuck no. It's like, who wants to deal with it? Although I'll say this, here in Jacksonville, there's a couple of nice shopping malls that you might find me walking around for exercise. I became like one of those old guys that walks around the mall for exercise when it's not nice outside. The Four Seasons Mall and the Orange Park Mall, they're both pretty nice malls. Like they're very old school 80s, 90s malls. No Orange Julius. I mean, that's one thing. No Time Out Arcade. But these malls are kind of fun because you feel like you're in a little bit of a throwback. You know what I mean? And you still can buy some stuff. And I try to buy stuff there when I'm there. Yeah, the Amazon thing, though, is great. I mean, I always pissed on it. I always thought it was anti-American or just bullshit, that you're going to order something. But now it's just so convenient. And like I said, I'm lucky that I live in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of, what do you call it, porch robbers or package stealers. Like we're pretty safe here. So I typically get all the packages that I order. So everything's good. And the Foreign Object store is available for you on eBay. All right, gentlemen. Well, look, I'm going to go back I'm going to chop off the first 5 minutes. I want to thank D-Back, Juan. Good to see you in here again, buddy. And No Sorry Montana, a very special thank you for helping me with the audio and helping me. What I did was I rebooted the whole router thing. And I should just learn to fucking reboot the router every day. Like that should be part of my routine. Brush your teeth, you crack your neck, and reboot your router because it's such an easy thing to do. And it just takes about a minute and a half before it's fully rebooted. And then you get better reception and everything. But, I didn't do it and I paid the price and I learned the lesson. So hopefully I learned the lesson and didn't ignore it. Well, gentlemen, have a wonderful week. Feel free to share this video. Mike's Instant Movie Reviews got a bunch of new stuff. All the excitement. Recently winning my 56th award in independent film festivals and so forth. And all my books are still on Amazon. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.